Giving props to where props are due. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of The Roots Matter, a show that talks about news and politics from a secular point of view that happens to be from a Black woman, such as I. And I have a story to tell you today. And it's usually, this is a different story. This is a different story that does not include my old church bad type stuff or government bad type stuff, even though I will get into all of that eventually. But if there is a story that actually highlights something good a church or a faith leader is doing, especially in the Black community, I have no problems reporting on it. So here we go. So this story is entitled Pastor Turns Down $1 Million in Church Donations, Urges Congregation to Give to SNAP Recipients Instead. And this particular story is from goodgoodgood.co. It was written by Cameron Baker. Okay, so let me just go ahead and give you a little bit on this particular story. So, as the government shutdown stretches on, millions of Americans who rely on SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, are staring down an impossible question. How will we eat next month? But while Washington argues, one pastor in Atlanta decided to do something about it. Jamal H. Bryant, the senior pastor of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, was preparing to raise $1 million for his congregation. Instead, he stopped the campaign midstream and redirected the focus towards feeding hungry families who will soon lose their food benefits. His message was simple but powerful. The church can't just shout about faith, it has to show it. New Birth already runs a grocery giveaway every 2 weeks, serving about 1,500 families. But now, with SNAP funds drying up, they expect that number to double. Bryant is mobilizing more volunteers, sharing national food resources, and even hosting training sessions to help other pastors turn their churches into food banks. This isn't just charity, it's a call to action. Bryant is reminding the faith community that when the government fails, the moral responsibilities to care for people doesn't disappear. It shifts. In his own words, the church has got to do more than shout. The church has got to be able to serve. Whether you're religious or not, that's a message worth hearing. Because compassion shouldn't depend on politics or on a shutdown that leaves millions hungry. When leaders won't act, communities must. And that's exactly what's happening in Atlanta. Okay? I'm going to stop sharing here because y'all, I have thoughts. So I'm going to give a rebuke along with an admonishment. Now, my rebuke is not to Pastor Jamal Bryant in this particular case. I have to say that there are only a few things here and there that I'm familiar with Pastor Jamal Bryant doing. I know that he took over New Birth Missionary Baptist Church after Bishop Eddie Long passed away some years back. I know that he was involved with doing the organizing to boycott Target because of their abandoning their DEI practices. And I know that he does host conversations from time to time with lawmakers. I know that he recently did one with Representative Jasmine Crockett. And I know that she does speak with him, at least that's what she said when she was on stage with him as they were having their discussion. So I would definitely say that it does concern me sometimes when we have faith leaders so involved in politics per se, where it seems like that they have a tendency, or they're telling their parishioners who they're supposed to be supporting. But I will say that if faith leaders and churches happen to be on the right side of history, allowing themselves to be a part of actually doing something to make a difference that's going to help the community instead of hinder it, I'm for it. And as I talked about the government shutdown and how it's affecting SNAP benefits and also the federal aviation airline workers who are doing air traffic control, it is a thing that we have to acknowledge, or we should acknowledge, that when the government is breaking the social contract that it has with its constituency, then often the burden to assist the constituency relies on community-based organizations like the church. Now, I would never deny history to actually acknowledge the role that the Black church actually played in organizing during the civil rights movement. But I also have to acknowledge that it was not the majority of Black churches that were doing the organizing of the marchers, the protesters, etc., in the civil rights movement. And we also have to recognize that it wasn't just Christians that were participating, it was Muslims that were doing civil rights work. It was people who happened to not be Christian or anything at all. A. Philip Randolph, one of the lead organizers of the March on Washington in 1963, and he was an atheist. Also, James Baldwin, he called himself not religious or irreligious. Never acknowledged that he was an atheist, but he definitely had rebukes for the church a lot, right? When, especially like if you read The Fire Next Time and some of his other writings. But I would have to say in this particular case, Pastor Jamal Bryant redirecting his congregation to not give to just to the church, but give to aid families that are going to be suffering during this government shutdown because they're refusing to fund the emergency fund when it comes to actually feeding people through SNAP. So, yeah, let's give honor to where honor's due. I mean, this is actually the work that churches are supposed to do. They're supposed to be in that area where they're serving the people. Because when people come to the church, and this is even like my thought pattern when I first was going to like a say sanctified Holy Ghost filled fire baptized church, ready for your life type thing, I was coming because I perceived myself as wanting to be healed from, past trauma and other things that I went through as a child and even as an adult. And at first it seems like I was getting that, but in a lot of time, but in actuality, I was getting more so indoctrinated into church culture more so than getting like the help, right? But there was some times where help was available and I could actually talk to people and they can meet me where I was. Now, in this particular case, with Pastor Jamal Bryant redirecting those funds to help people who are on SNAP, that's exactly what's happening. The church is supposed to be a place where people are being healed and they're being helped. Like he said, you're not supposed, it's not all about shouting and lifting of the hands and singing songs and stuff like that. I mean, it's part of it, but you know, after you go home from church, what then? What then? I remember leaving church sometimes broke, nothing in my pockets because I gave all that I could give, right? And it wasn't often that I could actually recruit that to say that, okay, I got a lot of help. Even though they did have a food pantry, and I did partake of the food pantry at least about a couple of times when I needed to when I was in college. So, I mean, that was a good thing to have that there. But, of course, like some wraparound services, I would have loved to seen in churches. And it seems to me from this story that is what this particular church is doing in Portion. Now, is only the church a place where these wraparound services like food assistance can go? No, right? There are other food banks that are available that are secular and people can go to. And I'm also going to place a link in Chicago where there are food banks that's going to be available to help give out food for people who are interested in getting assistance if they are on SNAP benefits that, happen to be in the city. But I think that the church in of itself is a very old organization. It's a very old place per se that is supposed to be that is supposedly a charity. That's what the church is supposed to be. And charitable works are what Jesus said. Remember, in the Bible, he talked about when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. When I was naked, you didn't clothe me. When I was in jail, you didn't visit me. So, if churches are calling themselves to be ambassadors for Christ and they are supposedly doing the work of Jesus because that's what a Christian is supposed to be, Christ-like, right? Then this is the work. This is the work. This is the work to feed people when they're hungry. This is the work to clothe people when they're naked. And I'm not saying that all churches are guilty of not doing this. That's not what I'm saying at all, because I grew up in a church where they did that type stuff, right? But we have way too many churches that are relying on prosperity doctrines and telling people to run down to the altar and give your money, give it till it hurts, because the Lord loveth what? A cheerful giver. Well, guess what? If people are giving their money in order to sustain this organization, then this organization should give back to the people and make sure that they are providing services. They're providing a place to serve the people, including feeding them, and not just like a fish dinner that is a fundraiser. Actually feeding people, especially when they are experiencing hard times. And I got to give my props to Pastor Jamal Bryant because this is something that he's attempting to do. And that's the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and also subscribe to my channel. And also, please drop some information or your thoughts in the comments section. Let's continue to have this discussion. Is this a good thing that Pastor Jamal Bryant is doing? Is it, not enough? Are you all still mad because other churches do very little? And think that Pastor Jamal Bryant is actually a an example rather, to be like. And also, he even said in the article that they're teaching other churches to be a food bank and also provide services for food as well. You know, let me know what you think. And always remember, dear viewer, at the end of the day, the roots matter. Take care.